Hello guys, and welcome to this week's episode of Heavy Metal Tones with me, your podcast host, Tony Evans. Welcome back to the world of music, as last week was just a bit of spookiness. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoy talking about it. I know it's not music, but hey, we all have passions and lives outside of the musical field, don't we? Anyway, I was in Sydney last weekend seeing Paul McCartney, or Sir Paul McCartney I should say, and 3.5 hours, no break, unbelievable, really unbelievable performer for his age, in his 80s. And on the way up, my wife and I were having a chat, and I was talking about how how deep I dive into lyrics, and she was saying, and I think John was also saying that to me the other day, that he doesn't really think of the words, listens to the music more. And I was sort of flummoxed by that, because I love the music, don't get me wrong, but I was sort of like, I really get involved. As you know, if you've listened to the show for any time, you know that I do get a deep dive into the lyrics, and I like to interpret them. I find them the more interesting part of the musical part of the journey of the music. But of course, I do love my fair share of instrumental music. I'm a prog lover, so prog is not just a four-letter word. You know, it is genuinely out there, and people are loving it. Back again, which is really good. But I thought, why instrumental album? Why instrumental music? And what is it? Blah, blah, blah. Does anyone really listen to it anymore? And of course, we would do if you listen to classical music. And you would do if you listen to some dance music, I would imagine. But actual instrumental music as an art form, I feel, is a sort of really suppressed subgenre now, which is interesting, because back in the 70s and early 80s, you had a lot of prog bands did instrumental albums. Camel did it. Iron Maiden often had an instrumental track on their albums. Most bands did. In fact, B-sides of singles used to be the instrumental version of the A-side. If you remember rightly, I've got quite a few like that. I think that listeners today are not in tune with that. And I don't mean listeners of our age and our generation, or even those that are seeking to find stuff, but just general masses, that, you know, the plebeians of the world. They sort of go, the songs are so quick and pushed out and so mass produced. I don't think that they would even consider not having a lyric on there, because they need a hook and a sing along, something to grab it, you know. If you think about it, so I was having some tea. If you think about it, before we had the written word, we could make sound, and we could bash a rock together. We could hit an animal's skin. We could pluck an animal gut. We could make some rudimentary sound of music. It may not be notated music, but we can make a sound before words. And so it makes sense that the music is the substructure of everything, right? But when you're like me, who has a fascination with words, being dyslexic, it's always been one of those things for me. I found hard to grasp when I was younger, but as I got hold of it, I really, really enjoy it more and more and more, and I find it more beauty and more artistry in the written word, and more so now than when I used to paint and draw a lot when I was at art college. So I find writing much more cathartic and more exciting. I think it's because it's a challenge for me. Anyway, I was looking through. Now, I've got a few suggestions from some of our listeners out there. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, John. Things like Oxygen was mentioned by Jean-Michel Jarre. Or when I was at school, I had a friend of mine who's called him Jean-Michel Jarre. You know who you are if you're listening. Jean-Michel Jarre. I think even Jean-Michel Jarre is probably mispronouncing it to the lovely French listeners, so I apologise for hurting your refined Franco ears. Anyway, then of course I got mentioned Tubular Bells, and I went to see that recently, and it is an amazing piece of instrumental music, and there's a lot out there. Snow Goose, another one by Camel, a lot. But I wanted to find something that was more modern, more fitting with our genre that we talk about, and a little bit more I don't know, a little bit different. Because a lot of you listeners out there will have some resemblance of knowledge of the later prog movement, most likely, if you're my age or older. And so you're probably sitting around going, yeah, I know all that stuff. But have you listened to any of this? Now, the band I'm going to mention, there's many bands out there. The band that really sort of sticks with me, and it actually sticks with my daughter's boyfriend, Jared. He absolutely loves them. And I saw them in 2010, I think, at Soundwave. It could be 2011, one of those years. And the band is an American band called Animals as Leaders. Now, Animals as Leaders is a fascinating band for me because they sort of sit in this genre called djent, which is D-J-E-N-T, or progressive metal. There's lots and lots of names you could call it, right? There's lots. I don't like the term djent, and I'll give you a quick rundown of what djent actually means. It's D-J-E-N-T is the initials. It says a complex, heavily syncopated rhythm section, high gain, palm muted, and down tuned. For me, djent is, if you picture djent, you can picture people with like silly 12-string bass guitars and 9-string rhythm lead guitars and all that sort of extremely complicated, overly theorized guitar music. But actually, that's what I used to think until I dived into the deep and dark waters of Animals as Leaders and other bands similar to them, like Tesseract and Periphery and Meshuggah. They make a sort of music that is so enthralling. If you like Steven Wilson, I'm going to guarantee you're going to like Animals as Leaders. They don't make hugely long pieces of music. It doesn't go on forever and a day. In fact, the last album they just released runs 36 minutes. It is sweet as. The sweet window, 36 to 42 minutes, that window of time is the best for a record for me. The band formed in America in 2007 by Tosin Abasi. Sorry if I get that wrong, but Tosin Abasi is a guitarist. On the first album, which was self-titled, he was the guitarist, the drum machine. Well, he did some of the drum machine, some of the guitar solos, bass, synth. He did most of everything, really. And he come out from a band called Reflux, which was a djent band, sort of like a progressive metal band. And he decided that he finished out from the band, and the label, which is, I think was, let me just get this right, was, what is it? Sorry, 1 second. I wrote it down. I can't find what I wrote down. 1 second. The Prostatic label. Sorry, man, brain went blink blank then. They offered him. They saw he was on a guitar, and they offered him to ask him to make a solo album, which is instrumental. And he was like, "No, I'm not doing that. It's I don't think he's good enough. I don't think I'm good enough." He said also it was too egotistical and too sort of, I don't know. He thought it was a bit self-indulgence. The word, sorry. So he took a year off to learn more music. Studied music for a year to get in deeper into the technology, the technical aspects of his musicality. Obviously, he's still an extremely gifted musician, but decided to go and do a deep dive into a little bit more technicality. And when he finished, he said to the label, "Look, why not? Can I take you up on that offer?" And so he recorded the first, as I said, the self-titled album with a few other people on the album. Okay, so he recorded it. He basically the synths and the percussion and the engineer Misha Mansup, who used to be in the band Periphery. He also did the drum machine parts because they didn't have a drummer then. They basically had a drum machine there. And they also had Javier Reese on. He played it for rhythm guitar. He was brought on permanently into the second album, but he started with just a little bit of rhythm, a little bit of soloing on the first album. Now, the reason I'm only going to mention the first album and the last album in this show is that I want you to go on the journey with the band yourself. But you can, if you only want to spend a little bit of time with the band, go to the first album and then go to the last album released last year, and you'll see the difference in sound, and it might make you whet your appetite to go back and try the other albums. Okay, they've released a few albums in the last few years since 2007. All right. I actually think that the Self-Tied album is my favourite of the early albums, absolutely. But I don't know. You might find it a little bit more. You might find the later middle albums, because they didn't get a real drummer until I say real drummer, a physical drummer, until their third album, and that's when the very gifted and fantastic Matt Garskin, sorry I said that wrong, Garska, came on board. Actually, I might be wrong there. I think he came in on board on Weightless, which is the second album. So the albums were as Animals as Leaders, Weightless, The Joy of Motion, The Madness of May, and Parisia, which is the final album. As I said, we could talk the first and the last one. If you want music that sounds pretty similar as well, but a lighter option after you've listened to these, I highly recommend a band called Pliny. I saw Pliny at the Basement here in Canberra a few years ago. Australian instrumental progressive music, very beautiful guitar, very beautiful. So if you ever want something a little bit lighter, like Tesseract, I'd go and look at Pliny. Anyway, before we move on, you might be thinking, what's an interesting name for a band, Animals as Leaders? Where did they get it from? Well, Tosin got it from the 1992 novel Ishmael by Daniel Quinn. He thought it was really very much the way the world was going. And I thought that's pretty smart. It's a really intelligent name. It sticks in your brain. I was just saying to someone the other day that I think band names have all been used, all the good ones. Like, there are some shockers out there, but there are some really clever ones, and it seemed to be all gone. Anyway, so let's listen to the first album. Okay, so it has got quite a few beautiful tracks on the album. A lot of them, when you listen to them, with all instrumental music, it might be called something like, there's a track on it called "The Price of Everything, the Value of Nothing." And that's my favourite track on that first album. It is absolutely beautiful, so different to everything else. I've wrote intricate, delicate, heavy, thought-provoking, technical, beautiful, terrifying in its architectural layering and its composition. It's so architectural. So using a drum machine, it does lose a little of its humanity. Now, that aside, the type of music that is played, particularly gent and progressive metal, it does have very fast, extreme rhythm section. So it could easily be sounding like a drum machine. You could listen to Matt and think, "Oh, that's a drum machine." But when you do listen to the first album, when you know it's a drum machine, it does take away. It does, well, not take away. It's the wrong thing. You feel, I don't know. It doesn't. It sort of does make the music a little bit more Casio cassette record keyboard player. You know what I mean? That sort of. It doesn't feel like it's human, and that's that. Look, when Mansour programmed the drums, he did a fantastic job. Don't get me wrong; it's absolutely brilliant. It doesn't sound like a cheap 80s drum machine. It is very well rendered. It is beautifully produced, but you can tell that it's snapped to a grid. You can sort of tell that it's which is one of the problems with this form of music, is that it's so technical and so precise that when in production, they do tend to clean it up quite aggressively, to the point where it can remove some of its humanity. But if you put that aside, you will enjoy this. When I saw them live, as said, at Soundwave, it blew my mind. I mean, I walked into this tent, I had no idea who was on. They were sitting down, if I remember rightly, and they were, you know, when you watch a band and the guitar's high up under their armpit almost, and you sort of think to yourself, here we go. You know, is this going to be, and pardon my French here, is this going to be a load of guitar wank? Am I going to just, you know, get really bored? That was the sort of headspace I was in, because I was at Soundwave watching all these incredible live acts. But it really took me on a journey. I was enthralled and amazed at the ability of their musicianship. There's three men on a stage. It was just absolutely mind-boggling. You know, the bass parts were obviously, I think they were synthed in, they were pedaled in, but they're wow, just because Mansour plays bass on quite a few of the albums as well, and it's just brilliant. But the album itself, okay, so it's not an album that did very well, of course, you can imagine. Okay, it's not the kind of music that's going to go top 10 viral. It is for those music nerds amongst us who just really enjoy guitar based. Now, this is the difference between the prog metal that I'm talking about and the prog that we've all grown up with, is that yes, there's guitar in prog of the 70s, but it's all keyboard driven most of the time, whereas prog metal is very much drum and guitar driven, very much so. A lot of tapping, a lot of sweep picking, a lot of very intricate and unusual scales going on. It's not like you know, it's not like unmusical like you get with some of those extreme guitarists where it's just all, you know, look, I can play a million notes in a bar, but I've got no musicality. Not like that. No, this is stuff everything they play is thought out. Every note that they put in the bar, every action they put on their instruments is there for a reason. It's not just to show off. They could show off, and I'm sure they should show off, and I'm sure they do on some of their pieces of music, but it feels okay without scaring people off. It feels jazz. It feels like very jazzy, very bluesy in a very technical way. It's very jazz fusion's the right word. You can imagine there's a band from the 80s called 1980. I think that's it. Let me just double check that. No, we got that wrong. Sorry, formed in 1979, released in 1980. The album was called, the band was called The UK, with Alan Holdsworth on guitar. Now, Alan Holdsworth, if you ever listen to his work, he's sadly died in 2017, but his guitar style, like he's got hands like twisted branches. How he gets those positions on the fretboard is beyond me. A jazz guitarist at birth. Now, he would, if you're listening to this is what I think of. I think of Alan Holdsworth on guitar. So if you're thinking what influences does Tosin have, I would definitely say Holdsworth is a major influence. But as I said, it's beautiful and wonderful, and I think that you have to give it some time. It's not going to blow your head off heaviness. It is heavy, but don't be scared of it. Like those out there who are not into heavy or just coming into the heavy genre, you often think I'm just going to dabble my toes. It is heavy, but it's like any heavy classical music. If you were to listen to Wagner or Beethoven or Mahler, you're going to get that kind of heaviness on it. But back to the drumming thing, the humanity of the drums on this album, it does lack a little bit, and that's why I think when Matt comes in, it does change the course of their band. I don't think they would have gone much further using a machine all the way through. They still use a bit of drum machines in some of the later albums, but you know what I'm saying. Like you just need that little bit of humanity. Anyway, that's enough of the introduction. I'm going to go and get a fresh cup of tea, and then we'll talk about both albums in more closely in the second part. But yes, do give yourself, write this down. Animals as Leaders, Tesseract, I'd say, as I said, Periphery, Meshuggah, brilliant modern heavy acoustic instrumental pieces of music. Anyway, see you on the other side, guys. Bye for now. Welcome back to part 2 of this dive into Animals as Leaders and instrumental music in general. As I mentioned right at the end of the first side there, Wagner and Beethoven and Mahler and Chopin, all the classical musicians. We were for a very, very long time, we spent our time listening to music that was purely just music. In our minds and our heads and our personal imaginations, we would play the story out. We were told it was called, let's say, The Ring Cycle. We were told it was called The Sugar Plum Fairy. Whatever it was told. It was we would start with that story, and we would build in our head the story that music is making. Now, this music is different to that, because I listened to the music. And honestly, all 8 tracks on both albums didn't even need a name, to be fair. Like, if you're listening, as I said, listening to like The Price of Everything, The Value of Nothing. It's a wonderful title. In fact, it's one of my favourite titles of the modern era. It's got delicate guitar. It's so beautiful. It captures your attention. With its textures and its nuances and its lightness. It's one of the lightest tracks on the album. And that one alone does sort of sit with the title. But then if you listen to either of the others, there's some like Segura, Tempting Time, Behaving Badly, Caffo, Point to Point, Modern Meat and Song of Solomon. There were a couple, that's to name a few on the album. I don't quite know, I mean, unless you read the album notes to find out what the songs are really about. And I don't actually own any physical copies of them, which I probably should do. I think I might sort of indulge myself and get a couple soon. It sort of doesn't mean that much, but as I said, if you use it as a jumping off point and go into the music with those words in your head, you may picture what Tosin and the guys were thinking of when they wrote the music. My favourite parts of the album, definitely the opening, Tempting Time, absolutely. The Price of Everything, The Value of Nothing, as I said before, is singularly one of the most beautiful pieces of music, instrumental pieces of music of the modern era. It's just stunning piece of music. And actually, I like Song of Solomon, the final track on the album. It really enters and ends the album very well. It is, as I said, fast. It can take your breath away. You have to listen to it, these albums, and like with all their work, you have to listen to it more than once. You're going to have to live with it for a little while. It's no good passing it through your ears and then going away and thinking, well, I've done that. I've done what Tone said, I've done. No. You will have to live with it, and it will have to live with you, rent-free in your brain, by the way, because it does with me. I know it does with Jared, my daughter's partner. You've really got to, you've got to let it live with you, because every time you go back to it, there'll be something else different. There'll be something more unusual. You'll hear different things. And also it depends how you listen to it. Now, I've listened to it on the go with really good headphones. I've listened to it through my speaker system. Again, they're good. And I've also listened to it through my very expensive studio headphones. And what a difference. The world of sound opens up. I think it's available on that new spatial audio on Apple, I think. And if it is on that, my God, jump in and have a paddle. It's well worth the time to do it, because what Tosin and the boys have done and what Matt does later is just phenomenal. Now, we're now going to talk about the last album, okay? This is the one that just came out last year, and I think this is all killer, no filler. Nothing makes me want to skip it. It is completely different sound. I think that the journey they go on through those several albums, you really can hear the growth of them. And this one, they've just hit that sweet spot, right? Because when Matt came on, I mean, he's a jazz, progressive, jazz fusion, reggae, blues, funk, hip-hop, Latin, and he does everything. He's been playing in bands since he was 14. His father was a classical guitarist. He's just an extremely, extremely talented drummer. You needed a drummer that could play live, that would cover some of that drum machine stuff from the first album, and it just does. He's one of those drummers that sit amongst the pantheon of drummers that make your jaw want to hit the floor. You know the types, the Neil Pearts of this world. It just sits there. The John Bonhams, the Keith Moons, the Ginger Bakers, the ones that you remember. They're not. It's not just splishy splashy. I've talked about open shoulder drummers and closed shoulder drummers before. This guy is a different league. He's a different league. I don't know how he's tuning these skins. I don't know. I've watched him playthroughs on YouTube. There's some brilliant playthroughs on YouTube of watching him. He's drumming, and it is mesmerizingly brilliant. He is so at one with his kit. He has to be, to keep up with Tosin guitar and also his augmentation. This last album is way beyond djent for me, though. It doesn't really. I think they dropped the djent stuff possibly on their third album. I think this is much more progressive and much more nuanced than just the palm muted, drop tuned craziness of djent. I think this is a far more intelligent, more refined album. And you're going on the journey with me. This is what you do. You go this one, go last one, and go back. Because I think if you go album by album, yes, you'll enjoy it, but I think this shows you. This is a real prime example for me of the growth of a band, and how you can musically change over only a short period of time. Maiden did it well as well. If you look at first Maiden album and this one now, you can hear the difference. Yeah, you can, but that's because they've spent 40 years doing it and have, the millions and millions and millions of pounds, euros, and dollars behind them, and studio power and strength. This band here, by no means are millionaires. I can't imagine them being driving around in Rolls Royces and living in mansions. These are hard-working, jobbing, very, very talented musicians. So the last album came out last year in 2022, called Paresthesia, March the 25th, 2022. The lineup on it is Conflict. Now I'm going to get some of these wrong because they do some weird titles. Conflict, Cartography, Monomyth, which is we'll get back to that. Red Miso, Gestaltserfall, Asashi, The Problem of Other Minds, Thoughts and Prayers, Microaggressions, and Gordian Naught. No, not Gordian Knot, but Naught, Naught. Now, Misha Mansour played bass predominantly on this album. Now, interestingly, he is actually, if I've not mentioned this before, and if I have, I do apologise. He's been credited with the inventor of the name djent, and so he doesn't really like that, and I don't agree with him. I agree with him. It's good to have a be sort of famous for something, but I'd rather be famous for my guitar than just coming up with the name of something. Anyway, it's a brilliant album. Short album, 36 minutes and 56 seconds long. Now, I think this is a shorter album because this is an album produced when we are now back in the era of vinyl, where we are not pumping the CD through 100 minutes of music. Why don't we just really focus our minds, our strengths and our talents on 5-minute to 6-minute tracks, beautifully well made, and fill out two sides of a record without overcrowding the groove and keeping the sound big? Because to have a sound big in an analog medium, you have to have a wide groove. And sometimes the albums come out, I've mentioned this before, played at 45 RPM, so they can have a wider groove, and so they can less compact on the vinyl, more wall of sound, more deep bass, better drum mix. And this is what they need with this band, because it's all based around their drums. Now the bass is wonderful, don't get me wrong, as a bass player this stuff is incredible, but you really are hooked on Tosin's guitar, the synth, and mainly the drum on there. And to be really honest, this is the best sounding production they've come across so far. I reckon this is outstandingly their best album, and certainly their first album. It outshines their first album by quite a way. And to be honest with you, after discussing this with other fans of the band, I'm not a huge fan of The Joy of Motion. Their third album, I think, it was a bit more less technical, I think, which is probably not a bad thing, but it's at the same time, for me, when I go to turn on Animals as Leaders or music of such kind, I want technicality. I want stuff that there's no way on God's earth am I going to play. And there's stuff that, makes middle-aged men stand in gigs, cross-armed, nodding gently and staring wisely at the fingers of the guitarist, thinking, oh my God. We've all done it. I'm sure we've all done it. I know I have. Guilty hand as charged. So they're staring at the guitarist in my own way, thinking, yes, how do I do that? Or looking at the bass player thinking, my God, he's in a completely different realm to the rest of us. And that's not mean to say that the audience don't get chaotic. I'm sure they do, but most of it is standing and appreciative, which I quite like, particularly at my age these days. I don't really want to get in there and have a punch up anymore. Anyway, highlights on the album. Absolutely Monomyth. Monomyth, the second track on the album, outstanding. The intro into the music, the way it pulls you into the album. I love the term monomyth. I like the word, like monolith. I really like that. There's a Heads for the Dead song called Monolith, which I really love. But anyway, side note, monomyth. I absolutely love play on words. Yeah, monolith, monomyth. Really like that. Conflict cartography. Another thing, great war maps, basically, just a clever way of saying war maps, isn't it? Really. Gordian Knot, of course, it's based on the story of the Gordian Knot, the Greek legend, myth, is wonderful, but the way that they play on words there is also wonderful, because they could have put Gordian Knot and you would have probably not thought any different, but it just brings playfulness into your mind. As I said before earlier, the names of the songs I've done in the past, I have made an instrumental album. Yes, I know you're going to say, well, put it up. No, it's not very good. It was a blues-driven instrumental album. I used a drum machine and a keyboard to get my backing. I put the bass on and the guitars on myself. And honestly, the names of the songs came about after I'd written them. I listened to the music and I thought, what does it mean? What does this music mean? What do I feel from it? And that's why I wrote the names of the songs. I think this is what's happened with a lot of this stuff as well, is write the music in one massive jam session, what I did, and break it up into several songs, and give them a name, maybe a theme. I mean, Paresthesia you can tell me what that means. I haven't looked it up. I'm not going to either. I just want to. I don't want to over intellectualize, as I always seem to do with this particular music. The music for me is just really, I'm going to swear here, really fucking good music. Okay, it hits my sweet spot, my G spot in just that way, right? It's technical, it's heavy, it's fast, it's beautiful, it's intricate, it's delicate, it's nuanced, it's textured, it's brave. It's just genuinely what the modern world of music is really lacking right now. I mean, 45, 50 years ago, people, teenagers, would sit around in their bedrooms, 15 and 16-year-olds, and listen to, the entire side of Snow Goose by Camel. They'd listen to great waves of music by Genesis and Yes and Van de Graaff Generator and Gentle Giant and all these amazing bands where a lot of it was just instrumental, and they would dig it, man. I hate the term dig it, sorry, but they would get into it. They didn't need a lyric. They didn't need quick hits. Of course, I love punk and I love metal, and punk did wonderful things to the modern landscape of music, more than I can possibly even talk about. But at the same time, it did some damage as well, in the fact that we don't have the ability, or most of the time now, not all of us, I'm generalizing here, the ability to sit down and listen to Paresia or Animals as Leaders, the first album, or any of the albums, even The Joy of Emotion or Weightless or The Madness of Many. I said Madness of May earlier, didn't I? I meant to say many. My handwriting gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and you can hear me turning my paper looking, going, what the bloody hell did I write? Anyway, it's a joyous album. Highlights definitely on this album: Gordian Knot, the Conflict Cartography, and of course the wonderful, wonderful Monomyth. I mean, the problem of other minds is also spectacular. In fact, it's all spectacular. I said all killer, no filler. I reckon you should jump on that, give that a listen through their catalogue. I spent the weekend listening to the entire catalogue. There are not a lot to get your teeth into. There's only a few albums. It won't take you that long. Spend them a day or two. You'll need to repeat them, as I said, and then jump into other amazing, if you don't want to do heavy progressive instrumental music but want guitar-based stuff, as I said, Snow Goose by Camel, self-titled album. I'd definitely say anything by Pliny. What did I write? Pliny, I did write one down. Every Piece Matters is a beautiful piece by Pliny, and if you're living in Australia and want to see him, he plays quite regularly here. He makes his own guitars. I think he's a Lutheran as well. Really nice chap. Young looking. When I watched him play, I was in awe. Absolutely. It was a strange old band. He was supporting he was supporting Paul Di'Anno. I wouldn't have picked that as a support band for Di'Anno, but hey, just marvellous. Again, textured, heavy, but also really pretty pieces of music. Of course, if you feel that you want to try something a little bit older, Tubular Bells, why not? Tubular Bells is not just for your granddad, all right? It is for the youngsters as well. It is for people our age. It's timeless, absolutely timeless piece of music. We all know it because most of us have seen The Exorcist, and we know the theme tunes to that. I've already mentioned this before in a previous podcast, but so you let Animals as Leaders be a jumping off point for you, and then delve back and find some really beautiful pieces of instrumental music that anything, honestly, by Rick Wakeman as well. There are some vocals on Rick Wakeman stuff, but it's mainly instrumental. On The Six Wives of Henry VIII, Seven Wives. He's a secret one. No, Six Wives of Henry VIII. He did the King Arthur. He did the latest one, which was absolutely brilliant. Which was I think it's called. Is it Man on Mars or something. Anyway, one of those sort of those. I didn't research on this off the top of my head. Brilliant, and of course Journey to the Centre of the Earth, which I absolutely adore. I like the original version and the new one he did, the reimagined version of it. Now that does have spoken word in it and a bit of lyric, but it's mainly instrumental and it's beautiful. So use it as a jumping off point and go and try that stuff. And then come and let me know. I'd love to know what your favourite instrumental pieces are. As I said, it's a slightly shorter. I'm going to say it's a slightly shorter episode this week because really I can't express into words. I can't articulate well enough. I don't think how nuanced, how different Tosin and the guys are, and how brave they are to play this music. Now, if you listen to jazz or or fusion jazz or classical music, this is nothing new. This sort of music would not be out of place. But if you're usually listening to Sabbath and Maiden and Exodus and anything, Slayer, whatever, and you're not used to long pieces of technical guitar-based prog metal, then this might be challenging for you. I mean, most of us at one time or another have listened to Steve Vai's albums, okay? Passion and Warfare is now, let's let you into a little secret. That was going to be the review this week. I was going to do Passion and Warfare because I saw him live play that back in the day, and I saw him play with Whitesnake, and I thought, but then I thought, no, that's got singing on it still. It's still got, words mainly, like, it's got talking on it. And I thought, I actually want to go a little bit deeper than that. So, along with those albums I mentioned, do give Passion and Warfare by Steve Vai a go. It is fun. It actually sits in that fun mold. It's not as... it's very technical because it's Steve Vai, but it's not as up its own sphincter, if you know what I mean. It doesn't take itself too seriously. I will do Passion and Warfare as a review if you really want me to. Please do, in my notes, come on my program and let me know, or message me or Facebook me and just say, yeah, do Passion and Warfare, because I will do it. I will do more of an in-depth dive because it's one album and I can talk about production and where it was recorded and guitars he used, all that sort of stuff. I don't want to go into that with this because I want you to come on a journey and learn to love instrumental music as much as I do and my friends do, because it can be a bit scary. As I said, some of us, like myself, who were forever, trying to listen to the lyric, work out what they're saying, what do they mean. And I think I come across that way because I'm a bass player, but not a really great bass player. I get by. I play guitar and I get by. But I always feel that I could probably be a good lyricist, or I'd enjoy writing lyrics. It would be difficult, but I'd enjoy doing it because I like the... that's why I'm a big Marillion and Fish fan, because I just really enjoy... And Gabriel. I like the written journey that takes you on outside of the music. Because it's something I can attach my fantasy to. I kind of fantasize that I'm written that lyric and I'm writing it down. Music's all about a fantasy, is it not? We do place ourselves, all of us at one time or another, whether we like to admit to it or another, we'll have our eyes closed, we'll listen to the music, and in our minds we're on stage playing that guitar solo, we're up there playing that drum solo, we're doing that, singing that wonderfully tricky and intricate vocal line or keyboards or whatever we choose as our instrument. We all imagine that's us there. All of us. I still do it now. I go into my special place quietly on my own in the dark room with the lights off, like I do. As I told you, it's my way of listening to music and to really get my head around it. Like, classic example was we were at McCartney and we were sitting there and he was playing Jet, which is actually one of my favourite Wings songs. And I had my hands in my head and I was quietly in myself listening to it, and my wife jabs me in the arm because she thought I'd fallen asleep. We'd had a few drinks before the show and it had been a long day, but no, I wasn't. It was because with all the light show and all the people and all the noise, I couldn't actually focus my thoughts and inner ability to really capture the music, I had to close my eyes. I had to block out external stimuli. It's the way I do it, and it was wonderful because I could really hear Paul, his guitar work. I could hear the keys, I could hear the guitars, I could hear his vocal line. But as soon as I stared at the stage, I got sort of like a kid in a candy shop. It was like, oh, shiny explosive thing, oh, look, that guitarist, oh, look at the keyboard, oh, look what the drummer's doing. And I couldn't focus. That's one of the troubles sometimes with live gigs, is that if you want to go and really enjoy the music, you have to concentrate. If you're going there just to have a bit of, just to be with the music, like most of the time that I'm out there, that's why when I'm headbanging a lot and people say, you didn't really watch the band. No, but I was listening, and that's the point. In that strange moment where my hair is whipping around and my head is banging, or I'm just rocking out, it's not because I didn't want to see the band, it's because I really just wanted to get my head into the music. And I highly recommend that for anyone out there who is trying to get more deeper into the music and be a bit more what's the wrong word, not educated, a bit more theological about the music, a bit more I can't think of the word, it's leaving my head. You know the word what I'm trying to say. Be a bit more studied or studious about the music. You need to get rid of external stimuli. You can't sit on a bus, you can't be in a car, you really do need to block out those external stimuli, and it really will notice they will open up the music. It's like opening a whiskey breathe in a glass, or a wine open in a glass, or a fine cheese air and become runny on your plate. It is just the way you do it. You have to give it time. And with bands like Animals as Leaders, this is where, if you're going to take one thing from this program this week, this episode, is give it time. If you first put it on and it overstimulates you, or it's too much, please, 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 if you take anything away from me, give it time. Don't skip them. Don't move on to something that sounds a little bit more easy for you to listen to. Give it time and repeat it, because it will really, you'll appreciate it. You'll come to me, you'll say, Tony, I really, really appreciate that bit of advice, because it will open up a whole new world of music to you. Yes, a bit of music snobbery. Nothing wrong with a bit of music snobbery. We've all been there, and I still go there every now and again. But I don't mind it. Makes me smile. I feel different, but it does when I then listen to more aggressive, simpler music like punk and thrash and whatever I'm listening to. It gives me an understanding of where music can go, and the primal rawness of the less technical music, and how much I really enjoy the bass aggression and the bass speed and the bass beauty of the rawness of this music. And then it really opens up the spectrum so greatly that you'll end up listening to things you never thought yourself listening to. And is that not one of life's joys? Is it not? We can't all go around just listening to the one thing all the time. I mean, we can, but how boring and how close-minded would we be? And I think you can take that thought through to your everyday life: food, drink, music, art, everything. It will open up so many worlds, and that's what prog did for me, and that's why I love this particular form of prog metal. This sort of, it's just so deliciously technical and so wildly pompous sometimes, and I love the pomposity of prog, and that's what I love about this. It's almost like, look how good I am, look at me, I can do this, and I can do it in such a way that you'll be mesmerized. There are people out there who listen to this show that will go, God, that's boring. I just want to hear, a really hard riff, 3 minutes and gone. And if that's the good on you, I have no judgment of any of you, because I like that as well. But I think this may open your mind a little bit more. Anyway, as I said, try the first album, listen to the last album, then go back to the middle ones. And that was given to me as a bit of advice from my daughter's boyfriend the other night, when I was saying, look, I've only ever listened to this stuff in order, and he was like, no, do this. And I did that, and it really opened my mind, hearing the drum machine and the real drummer, and thinking, oh my God, you can feel the humanity in the later albums that you don't hear in the first album. That's a bit more cold and computer-like. Anyway, that's enough for me. I've rabbited on for almost an hour, as I like to do. Jump on, have a listen, tell me what you think. If you know any other really amazing instrumental metal bands that I've completely missed, or I don't know about, I might know about, just missed them, please do come and jump on my page and let me know. Dive into stuff like Tubular Bells. Do listen to What a Snow Goose. Do jump on and have a listen to the 70s, instrumental stuff. Listen to Jean-Michel Jarre or Jean-Michel Jarre, as my friend has said. Oxygen. Listen to that stuff, because it may just open up your world to something different, and I really hope it does, because that's what gives me, as a podcaster and as a lover of music, it gives me great joy to discover new stuff and to open the eyes of other people, and they can discover it, and then they can show me stuff that I discover, and I find that the best aspect of life in music. Really, truly, discovery is wonderful, because let's be honest, we all love to go back to our beloved pieces of music, but finding something new just makes you smile, or does me anyway. So enjoy that. Chat soon. Talk next week. Thanks for coming and listening. Do come and leave me a review on Spotify or on YouTube or on iTunes or wherever you get them, because the more reviews I get, the more people will hear my show, because the algorithm points me in that direction. So negatively or positively, I've got some negative reviews on YouTube, on iTunes. I don't mind. Not everyone's going to love what I say. Everyone's going to enjoy my off the cuff. Sometimes it's incorrect, sometimes it's correct. I don't care. I just love chatting music, and I love you listening, guys. So anyway, bye for now. See you next week.